blabber on any longer? Should we just get straight into this?
I wasn't blabbering.
Blabber is a... Why did I say blabber? That's a weird word. I don't even know why I said
blabber.
You're
Yeah,
blabbering
it's
everywhere.
Blubbering.
Oh, God. This is...
Blah, 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 blah.
And there's our intro to the podcast. Thank you very
Blah,
much.
blah, 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 blah.
All right. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to episode 65 of the Board Game Gateway podcast. My name is Neeber, and I'm your host for this evening. Today's, whenever you're listening to this podcast, we are your entryway into the world of board gaming and fun times. And if this is the first time you're joining us, let me introduce you to my co-host. Sitting around the table with me today, on my left, I have Mr. Joel.
Hello.
On my right, I have Mr. Ralph.
Hey, everyone.
And returning special guest, once again, we have Mr. Leo. Welcome, sir.
Hello, everyone.
Hello, hello, hello. We are going to a very special episode for you tonight. We have decided that coming into the holiday time, we're not going to give you our top Christmas games because we did that last year and we thought there's not really a lot of Christmas themed games. But what we thought instead is that we're going to give you our top 5 family games, as we decided that, we spend a lot of time with family and friends over this upcoming Christmas holiday period. So if you're in America, which we do have listeners over there, like in the
25% of our listeners
I know,
are
in
Americans.
the north, if you're in the northern hemisphere, you'll be probably spending a lot of time indoors in the snow. And if you're in the southern hemisphere, like here in Australia, you're probably inside trying to get away from the blithering heat that's coming our way in summer. So plenty of time to play board games.
Definitely.
Plenty of inside time.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So we're going to get into today, in no particular order, we're going to take you through our top 5 family games. In no particular order, we have 5 each, and we're going to tell you a little bit about the game and why we think you may like it as a family game for the coming, for the holiday period. So, gentlemen, do you reckon we get into this one?
Let's do it.
Fantastic.
Let's
All right,
do it.
well, in no particular order, I'm going to start with Mr. Ralph.
Yeah. Don't we want to roll for it?
Oh, do you want to roll for it?
It's also a game. Roll for it.
All right, okay, I got one.
You
All right,
got
no,
one?
I'll just
All
go
right,
pick
so
a number.
all right.
1,
I'll be 3.
3.
No,
Oh,
damn it. 2.
2.
All right, I'm 4.
All right, 4.
I bet it's 5.
5.
6.
All right, it's me. I'm going first.
You're up. You're up.
No, we were hoping that was going to land on there, but apparently not. Okay, I'm going to start off with me. All right. I'm going to start off with with a game that we have talked about a lot on this podcast. It is currently ranked in my top 10 board games of all time, and I currently rank this as one of the best family games I think you can play, and that game is Decrypto. Decrypto is a team-based word guessing game. We've gone through the rules on this game plenty of times when we've talked about it, and it is one of those games that 2 teams are trying to guess a code, but the other team is always actively listening, trying to intercept and guess what that code is towards the end of the game. It normally takes about half an hour to play, and I find that this is a great family game for the holidays and a great family game in general because of 2 main reasons for me. The first one is that everyone is involved all the time. There are some other word guessing games out there, like Codenames, for example. When it's the other team's go, you don't get to play. You just kind of have to sit there and watch them play their turn out. Whereas in Decrypto, you're always listening because you want to figure out what their clues are to try and intercept come later in the game. And the second reason why I love it is because this is a game that you can play very quickly. You can just get in, start playing around, and everyone will eventually get it. But yeah, my number 1 game, my first game out of the top 5, Decrypto. Gentlemen, what do we think? Are we okay with that?
I'm so okay with Decrypto. It's one of my favorite kind of party games. But the tragedy for me with Decrypto never makes it to the table. And I think part of the reason, which is probably my con for this game and why it didn't make my list, is the rules are just a little bit just fiddly to explain.
Yep.
Like there's a few things that are a little bit counterintuitive to explain to people when you're playing it for the first time. And so if it's a returning group that knows the game, perfect. But if it's a new group, it's a little bit tricky.
Yeah, Nee and I have discussed this a little bit, and I think we agreed on you need a rolling teach.
Yeah.
But then what I found that means is there's always the first round or 2 people like, what am I doing? I don't get it.
Yeah.
Like, stay with me, everyone.
And it's 50-50. You might lose them or you might keep them.
You have to throw a game almost just to learn
it's
it.
like you're showing someone like your favorite album. It's like, it's going to get good. Just wait.
That's it.
Exactly.
Song 6, man, halfway through.
I've always found that so long as I say to them, look, this first round is don't worry about the score and don't worry about who wins or loses. We're just going to play this one to have a bit of fun. And I swear by the end of this round, you'll all start to make sense. And then you can start adding in those rules of like, well, you can't say this kind of clue because this is the reason. Like you can't, say the same number, the name of the thing. But I've always found that immediately, as soon as we start playing this game, it always gets a second play. So long as you can get to that second one, I think most people are generally in.
I personally actually haven't played this particular game. I have seen it and I understand mostly what it is. What kind of age groups would you say that this would work for?
This is 10 and up. I reckon any kid 10 and up realistically is great. The kids will be able to start getting it. And a good thing as well is that because it's a team-based game, you can slowly guide them. Like you could have, for example, if the clues are all the same, you could say, you know, like, hey, Leo, like, what do you think that, like, hey, he said that these are the clues.
Yeah.
Does this word remind you of any of these other words that we have around it? And you can slowly guide them to that. It may slow down play a little bit, but nothing too strenuous, I don't think.
We did play it with slightly younger than 10, and it was okay, but they felt a bit of that pressure, you know, when it's their turn to provide
give
the
clues. Yeah.
So you kind of have to really ease them into that. And so it wasn't the sort of game that they probably reach for, but I think 10 and up is probably a good
I remember
range.
I played this with my 13-year-old niece at the time, and I think the word was knife and kitchen, and she used the word murder, and I was like, you're using the word murder as a clue? Like, where did this come from? And it worked really well. So she surprised me.
Perfect. It'll always give a good laugh, and that's my first pick, which is Decrypto. We're going to go around the table. We're going to go left here, and we're going to go straight to Mr. Joel for his opening game.
Yeah, so I didn't know that we weren't ranking the games. So
Well,
You can roll the dice.
so I actually have ranked the games.
he's going to start
So you're
with
going to
his
go
number
5 to 1?
Yeah, well, let's go 5 to 1.
Maybe I'm going 1 to 5.
5.
We'll see how I'm going to do, how the night shakes
I'm
out.
going to make sure I don't get this one. But at number 5, I've actually got a game that needs no reading. It is all visual. The rules can be a little finicky to start off with, but overall, what you need to do is fairly simple, and that is Dixit.
Dixit, yeah, good choice.
Classic.
That's a very good choice.
It
That's a
works
classic.
with, I feel like, all family sizes. It's better at 4+, but a group of 3, you can still play it. But typically, if you've got a small family, say 3 to 4, or a big family of up to 8, it'll still work with this game. It has no boundaries for language or needing to read or anything like that. Very visual. We find for the younger kids, just telling them to pick a color if they can't pick something. Saying the clue blue tends to work more often than you think it would.
Yeah.
That's genius, actually.
I haven't played it a lot lately, mainly just because I don't own it. But I remember playing it a while back, and it's just so simplistic. It's just one of those games that just tickles that cerebral edge of like, okay, how do I get them to guess this without being too overt? But I want, it's like, how do you explain a sunflower ish painting without overtly saying flower? It's really cool.
It's also one of those games where the artwork is like really nice to look at. Like you just get a lot of enjoyment just.
And we actually got 2 different expansions for it now, and the expansions are just more cards. They have different themes. It's like you can take the kid out and be like, what do you like? And like, oh, I really like the Disney looking ones, or I really like the space looking ones, and then they get really involved when they start to see those cards come up.
That would make it harder if all of them are space-like.
You'd think so, but it doesn't. Not
Mars.
as much as you think.
Mars.
Because it's like half the cards become that basically, and then again, if you're saying clues like
Not
it's
Mars.
red.
Snickers? I don't know. What are we talking about here? Wait a minute. We've completely lost the plot. No, I think it's a great.
But
choice.
yeah, that's me for number 4.
Fantastic. Number 5. All right, we're going to keep going around the table. We're going to jump across the other side, and Mr. Leo will go to you, sir.
I'll start with my most common one that's probably going to bore everybody, but I'm going to put it out there, which is Azul.
No, that almost made my list. That's not boring at all. I think that's a good.
Okay, great. Idea. Well, let me just explain it real quick. If you have, I'm sure everybody's heard of Azul, but it's an abstract tile laying game. You have those beautiful mosaic designed tiles.
I got the travel edition specifically, so I could take it with me.
Brilliant. And so because it's that abstract, like it's not super thematic or like it's not hard to learn. It's easy to teach. Kids can play it, I think, from a pretty young age.
Yeah.
And it's just fun. It's enjoyable to like rifle through the bag and fill those tiles and figure out where you're going to put them. It's the decisions aren't so hard that it's taxing to play. You could play it many times. I guess if I had to rank it, I'd probably put it lowest on my list because I think I've played it enough times where I don't get as much enjoyment now from playing it. I don't feel the strategic decisions are as interesting to me necessarily. But still a great one for the family.
I agree with you 100% because this was a game that I just said I bought the travel edition and we went on holiday up to Queensland, and whilst the kids were bouncing around on this the air sandworm thing, my wife and I were enjoying cocktails and playing a game of Azul on thing whilst we were just sitting there, and we played about 3 or 4 games back to back, and it is one of those perfect games that like there's enough there that you feel like, hey, I'm playing a game, but also not so much there that I feel like I'm being mentally taxed by doing that. I think it's
you could definitely have a good chin wag while you play.
Yeah, I will say that I think that the scoring of Azul sometimes can throw people off just in the idea of just, hey, what do you like? How am I supposed to fill up the row, and what happens if I don't? But once they get through that, it's very, very minimal. But it is one of those moments that the meanness of that game only reveals itself when you want a specific pile and someone goes yoink, and you're like, no, but now I'm going to get -9 points. And you're like, yeah, sorry about that. I'm not sorry about that. So I think it's great.
Yeah, I have to agree. It's a great game. I think I've probably played over 200 games of Azul.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's just a game it was one of the first 3 games that I ever got, and then so it's the only game we could play for a long time, and then it became, if we ever have new players, that's the game that you're going to bring out because it's simple to teach. And yeah, it's just one of those games that you kind of switch your brain off and just play and enjoy. And
I feel like it's kind of crossed over into like the mainstream, like almost the Catan level mainstream, where they've now done every single other version of Azul you can imagine, which I have not tried.
I think Azul the movie comes out.
Azul,
next
yes.
soon.
Azul Duel is coming out. So 100. Yeah, it is. We have a whole
every game
conversation
gets a
about
dual
we have
version.
everything getting the dual version these days. Even though Azul,
But the original is great.
that's what I was gonna say. At 2 players, the original is just as good.
awesome.
So it's great.
Yeah.
All right, Ralph. Let's go to you for your first game on our top 5 family game list.
Yeah, well, Nee mentioned we have some listeners from the US, and I think they're going to really enjoy this game. I play this a lot with my family. We play Cash and Guns.
I love Cash and Guns.
There's nothing like playing with your family and putting a foam gun in your mother's face.
or watching your mother point the one in your face.
Yeah, exactly.
That's great.
Or like in that moment, you realize I have 3 family members pointing a foam gun at me. What am I going to do? And everyone loads either a bullet in your gun or a blank in your gun.
Okay.
And you can dive out of the way, but like you don't get your cards back. So once you use your bullet, you lose it. So if you get shot, you don't get any money in the middle of the table or points. But if you dive out of the way, you don't get any points either.
Okay.
So
But
you
at
can
least
dodge the
stay in
bullet,
game.
but you stay in the
You're not
game.
eliminated,
You're
yeah.
not eliminated. Or you can risk it, or like if you think someone else is winning, I'm going to try and actually shoot them. I've loaded a bullet and I'm going to shoot you. And there's a role called the Godfather.
Yeah.
There's everyone
The
gets a little
mafioso.
role,
Okay.
and that rotates around the table. But they can go, "Hey Joel, you're pointing your gun at me. Point it at Leo."
Oh, damn.
You have to do it.
Yeah, so
And-
if you haven't gone that yet, this is such a good game.
It's such a fun game in the
Yeah.
right group. Once you get over the stigma of guns and you realize it's just a silly foam gun in the face, it is so fun.
So I played this game first up by doing the print and play. And I just said, we're not using guns, we're using finger guns.
Finger guns.
So you wanted to use your finger guns, right? But it's great because the game is essentially the Mexican standoff the board game. That's all it is.
It
The
really
treasure
is.
comes out in the center, and if you're in there, you get your
But there's
share,
also
right?
a bit of memory to it. Like
Yeah.
if I remember Joel's fired off his 2 bullets already, I know he's got blanks. I
Yeah.
don't have to worry about Joel anymore.
Or
okay.
and my favorite, I do love the mafioso, which is that
Yeah.
there is one card always in the center, which is that you can bypass the treasure to grab the mafioso.
So I
it's
had-
like, it's like
yeah.
Ralph, why are you pointing your gun at me? Point it somewhere else. Point it at Leo, and he has to point
It's
it
such a
at himself.
it's
Oh,
such a
God.
power play.
It's
That's
so good.
awesome. Boss
You
move.
can play it with like everyone gets a unique ability for the game. The game's only 8 rounds, so it goes quite quick.
Yeah.
But I actually moved it on because I played it a bunch. Now I'm like, I miss
You
that
miss it.
game.
Come
I
on
miss
back,
that
yeah.
game. I've had people come over, go, "Can we play it?" You know.
So like, and what Ralph said at the start, they're just foam cutouts. They
Yeah.
really plainly just they
Yeah.
have orange tips and things like that. So it's like, but it always like the finger guns are nice, but it is nice holding a prop.
It
Like
is
when you're
also
holding
good.
a prop, it does feel like
it feels like an actual toy.
Yeah, it's
and
great.
like when you dive out of the way, you actually have to put it on the table, and it's like a cool little effect.
Yeah,
that
okay.
I
happens
love
on
that.
the
I
table.
haven't seen that. Definitely gonna
Yeah,
have
it's
to
a
have a
good
look.
Cash,
at
it's
that.
check
a
it out.
Cash and Guns second edition is what's currently available. You can
Yeah.
probably find that out there. All right, Ralph, why don't we go back? We'll go
Oh,
back
you're
the
gonna
other
snake
way.
it.
Reverse
Okay.
order.
We're gonna snake
So you get
draft order.
another
We're
go.
gonna go back, and why don't you go
Oh,
again
okay,
for
well,
your
this one
second
is
game?
a little less controversial.
I didn't think it was that controversial.
No,
but yeah,
all right,
go
cool.
on.
The first family title had guns in
Yeah,
it.
that's
It was
right.
a good start.
So we've spoken about this game on the podcast
Here we go.
previously as a gateway game. Personally, I'm not a big fan of Pictionary. I'm a big fan
Oh,
of
it's coming.
Pictomania.
You stole my next
Pictomania.
one.
Oh,
but we can share this one.
there
we share
we
it?
can share it.
Let's
There
go
we
next
go.
to each other.
So
Yeah.
we'll explain it together. So it's basically there's a grid of words on the table, and they're kind of similar to each other, right? So if someone's drawing a rake, someone else might be drawing something similar to
A
a rake,
trident.
like a broom or
Yes.
a trident. And everyone has little. Everyone's got to draw that, or you get a specific word out of the grid of words that's on the table, and you have to draw your word. No one else is drawing what you're drawing, but you have to guess what everyone else is drawing, and they have to guess your drawing as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
That fixes one of the biggest flaws of Pictionary, in my opinion, which
Mm.
is the downtime,
Yeah.
right? Like when your team is not doing the drawing, you're just sitting
Yeah.
around heckling or not doing much.
Especially when the other team gets on a run and you're just like, yeah,
Exactly. You're just sitting around twiddling your thumbs. Whereas in Pictomania, everyone's drawing, everyone's guessing.
What-
It's frantic,
yeah.
it's fast,
It's
it's
so
fun,
frantic.
it's so good.
What's great about it as well is the specific rule in Pictomania of once you start guessing, you're done drawing.
Yeah, you
so
can't
you
pick
can't
up
make
your
any
pen.
like you have to draw until you think you've done enough. and then you can start slamming down your guesses. And the moment that you're in the middle of your drawing and someone just drops their pen and starts going for the guess, you're like, and immediately just drop it and just go for it and follow it, right? And sometimes that could be like you look up and you realize Leo did an absolute crap drawing. I could have gone for another 10 seconds. What
But you
have
do
I done?
it's a balance. You do get penalized if you stop drawing too fast and people can't guess.
Exactly right.
And you get more
drawn.
points if
So
you
you get-
guess quicker.
So
as
you
well.
get points for guessing other people's.
Yes.
And the
for how many
speed of your
yours.
guess.
And
And the speed of your
guess.
So you want to be the first person to guess it because you'll get more points. But if
Okay.
no one guesses your thing at all, you're going to get negative
You
points.
lose points.
So you
Right.
don't want
So
that to happen.
You can't just draw nothing and be like, well, I'm going to guess them all.
Yeah.
Like,
Because I've been in that situation where I think I've made a good drawing and I moved it slightly in the center of the table so other players can guess it. I've put out all my guesses and no one's guessed my picture.
Yeah, it's,
But you know the funny thing is, going back to what you said at the start, because the things that you have to draw are quite similar,
Yes.
they're in the same category. There can be a situation where you draw your thing, you put it out there, and then later you realize, oh crap, like I've drawn something that's kind of looks. It could be anything, any one of
Yeah.
these three things.
yeah.
And
Because there's a lot of words, you can't scan all those words and remember them all.
Yeah.
So it's
That's
quite a
part of the
clever
fun.
game. It's
Yeah.
quite a clever game. I really enjoy it. And we've tried the variant where you play with the harder words,
Yeah.
and you start.
It's hilarious.
You start getting like emotions as words, and you're
Yes.
like, how do I draw this particular emotion? And you get really creative. People spend more time on their drawings, and it's amazing.
How do I
Yeah.
describe anti-disestablishmentarianism? What? All right, let's
That's
go.
easy, bro. I got that.
Yeah. I mean, it's that hard. Sometimes it's like the simple sounding words, like joy. How do you
Yeah.
describe joy? Like,
Exactly. Yeah, exactly right. Look, it's a great game. There are plenty of copies of it out there that you can purchase. So look for it. Pictomania. It's one of those games as well that got a second edition as well. It's very popular, so you'll be able to find it. All right. Well, that was Leo
Those
and
both,
Ralph.
right?
Yeah,
both
double head off.
there. That was number 4 for both of them. Let's move back to Joel.
I
here
didn't
for
rank
your-
mine. I'm just like.
Oh, well, that's
yeah.
fine. Well, for your second game, then let's go to your second game over here.
So my next one was almost so simple that it almost felt like cheating to put it on the list. But we've played it so many times and even enjoyed it with and without the kids that I had to include it. So at number 4, because I did number mine, is actually Spot It.
Oh, yeah. No, that's great. Great choice.
This game knows no age. We can play we had 4-year-olds playing right up to the point where all the kids had gone to bed, and me and my partner played 6 more games because all right, now it was time to go. We felt like it was quite easy to adjust. Like we can just make our stacks a little bit bigger than the kids, and then we have to get through more cards or things like that to adjust. So.
That doesn't happen in my house, mate. My 7-year-old legitimately beats me at Spot It. She's got the eye of a hawk in that game. She
Yeah,
can literally
okay.
just go, yeah, no, that's... I'm like, all right, yep, that's 100%. That's what it is.
Yeah, fair. That's fair. But if there is differences in
Yeah.
like people's skill level, we found it was easy to adjust without the kids even really noticing as well. So they feel like it's an even playing field and they feel like they've beaten you. Yeah. And again, like there's nothing to read. There's nothing to...
Spot It is literally just find the icon. 2 icons are the same. And there's actually a couple of really interesting things about this particular game. One, the first thing is that this is one of those games, Leo, that you mentioned that's kind of breaking that with like Azul is breaking into the mainstream because now Spot It has got Spot It Harry Potter. It's got Spot It Marvel. I've seen.
We saw like
Star
a pancake
Wars.
version as well.
Yeah,
We've got the pancake one.
Anarchy
it's a different
Pancakes?
game. There's a few games of the same variety.
there is a
Bit
Spot It.
similar.
There's a Spot It Kids, which has different
And it's
icons.
also like I think you probably find it under $10 at any like Big W or Target or pretty much
you'll probably
anywhere.
spot it. You'll probably spot it.
I guarantee.
Yeah,
this
you'll
is the
spot it
thing
there.
About the game is that there is only ever one icon that is matching every time, and there's actually a really interesting YouTube video. If you go to YouTube and type number file,
I have seen.
he does a breakdown of this game where it's basically there's actually there's maths behind how they got this game. It's like there's a maths equation of how they work it out, but like it guarantees that there is only one link between it. And it's actually
Serious?
It's really
amazing.
cool, and it's like
100%.
it's
I
like
have
the
heard
reason
that.
that there's a set specific amount of cards, and he's like you can do the same thing with 6 icons, but the number of cards changes.
Yeah,
Like,
it's
it's
a
very,
really
like-
cool video.
Wow.
It's not called Spot It over in the UK. It's called something different. But if you type in Spot It, it's like how does Spot It work, and number file, it'd be whatever the name is because you got it in brackets. I can't remember what it's called over in the. But yeah, it's super cool. Highly recommend checking it out, and I also highly recommend playing that with because that's a game you can play with any kids.
Yeah, it's a even
very
for
portable as
5-year-olds,
well.
10, 20
Travels
seconds
well.
to teach. Match the symbol, fastest done.
Yeah.
That's it. That's the whole game.
Perfect. All right, we're going to move on to my second game for my top the top 5 family games, and I'm going to go with one that I was introduced to last Christmas. It's one that I kind of saw, and I think is a great one. No further ado, it is Herd Mentality. And Herd Mentality is a really fun game where it's just basically, okay, we're going to have a card pulled out in the center, and it says, hey, what do you think is the best biscuit? Okay, and then we all have to write down our answers on a piece of paper, and the aim of the game is to be part of the herd. You want to be in the majority. You want to say, if everyone is like, okay, so all right, we're gonna do a live example here. All right, ready? Best biscuit after 3. Ready?
Oh, sugar.
Best biscuit.
I don't know
Ready?
my biscuits.
Ready? Just have a think. Best biscuit. Ready? 3, 2, 1. Tim
Tim
Tam.
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 McDonald's cookies.
In that particular,
But if you want to be in the majority,
Exactly.
sure,
So
you
I
can
don't
say
think
Tim
that
Tam.
it's a Tim
in
Tam,
this
but I was like,
particular instance, so in this particular instance, Joel, myself, and Leo, we all score a point because we're now in the herd. But Ralph will now get a pink cow put in front of him.
I like the pink cow.
Yeah, but however, if you have the pink cow in yourself, the only way that you can ever get rid of it is
don't wanna get rid of it.
by having someone else be in what they call the super minority, which is you're the only one not in the herd, and then they become the pink cow. If you have the pink cow in front of you, you can never win the game.
Yeah.
Even if you, and the game ends once you get to 7 points. So the gameplay is super snappy, super
Nice.
quick, all of that kind of stuff, right? But if you have the cow in front of you, you can never win. So for the rest of the game, you're like, no, I don't want the cow, please.
and it's
someone
hard
else.
too because like you're relying on other people to mess up, right?
Exactly-
Like this
exactly
doesn't matter
right.
how well
but
you
when it
do for
gets
the
to
rest
your
of the
turn,
game.
can you just be like really obscure and like?
Well, no, because you pull the card from the center and it just
Oh,
says,
it's a card,
and the
okay.
card just says, "Hey, this is what we're looking for. You know, what's the best form of transportation?" Or we had a funny one, which was, "What's the best room in the house?" For example, we've talked about this on a
The
previous
board game
podcast.
room.
Toilet.
Yeah, well, bedroom, kitchen. I mean, what are we talking
Whichever
about?
room has the games in it.
Exactly
That's-
right. So anyway, but there was a funny story that we had about this in the last GooberCon episode, in the 2023 GooberCon episode. So if you want to go check that, there's some funny stories from that. But that is my number 2 pick for that. Now, before we move on to our number 3 pick, however, what I think we should do is very quickly, I'd like to ask each of the hosts here. I think it'd be good. We've said, hey, a family game. But I think what actually makes a family game, I think that's very important for people to understand. Like, we're going to be saying games that we think are great family games, but why are we picking those games? And I will start here because I'm kind of throwing this straight onto the host. I didn't tell him I was going to ask this question, but going through this,
I
I
need
think-
time. So
yeah, I was going to say, look, for me, straight out of the gate, a family game has to have 2 things going for it. One, it has to minimize downtime as much as possible. I want as many of my people playing a game as much, because if I'm playing with not only kids, but also some of my older relatives, my mums who's getting up in the mid-60s, and even my grandparents now in their 80s, they don't really have a lot of time to wait and to learn rules and stuff. So you got to get in and play it really quickly. But for me, the other thing, so minimal downtime, but it also has to be just, and this sounds stupid, but it has to be fun. Right, like there are games that we play that we find enjoyment out of, like the
Like the
Euros and
challenge,
stuff, the
like-
challenge of the game. We like that,
Yeah.
but it
Yeah.
has to have some sort of element of fun to it. Whether or not that be laughing, whether or not that be talking to each other, but it has to be fun to play rather than being a challenge. I think those 2 things are the big things for me. What are we talking about? Who wants to go next? Anyone want to have a join
yeah,
in
I'm
here?
okay to go.
Yeah, go on.
Yeah, sort of similar. I think that it does need to be fun, but to elaborate, I think it needs to be fun at all ages. It's almost like the old Toy Story movies where it's fun for the kids, but it's really funny for the adults because they get the in-jokes. I feel like if you have a game that is great for the 5 to 10-year-olds, but the adults get bored playing it, it's not going to come out very often. So I feel like it needs to be fun across from 5 years to 20 to 30 to 40 years old. I think it's quite a big
I think it's a great idea. Ralph?
Yeah, I've got quite a big family at like family gatherings, like Christmas and things like that. So we, I think any game that brings a big group together,
Yeah.
because it doesn't necessarily need to, for me, it doesn't necessarily need to involve absolutely everyone, because not everyone would want to play a game.
Yeah,
and
fair enough.
I don't really force, we shouldn't really force people to play games. It's like, come play with us, please. But yeah, I found any game that is sort of quick to the table, people identify or like, oh, that looks really cool. Like any game that stacks like Jenga just has everyone's attention, right? So just something that ropes people in naturally, I find works really well as a family game.
Perfect. Leo?
I think you guys covered most of the main points, but I would add another layer to fun, which is it helps if you can get some great stories out of it. right? Like,
yeah.
you were talking about the gun prop, and you can imagine everybody getting a real like kick out of that and talking about it afterwards.
Yeah.
But any game where it can create stories or create that engagement and memorable, things that you talk about afterwards, I think is a great sort of family game.
Yeah, I had my just on that gun game. I had like my 12-year-old niece or so point the gun at her grandmother.
Love that.
And my mom was just cracking up.
That's
like, what are you doing?
And on Pictomania, you look back through
Yeah.
the stupid drawings and you laugh about
Exactly.
how dumb that thing looked, and it's great.
I would like to point out that last time I played Herd Mentality, at the time I was the only one who didn't say Tim Tam. That particular example, I said Oreo because I was big on Oreos and I had
They're
the pink
great.
cow for
I mean,
a
if
long
you were in
time
the
ago.
American
Oh, yeah.
audience, you'd totally go for
Absolutely,
Oreo, probably,
probably
right?
at the
Versus
time.
a Tim
I tried
Tam.
a Coca-Cola Oreo lately.
Oh.
And it was terrible.
No, that's, okay. You don't need to change
You
that.
needed to taste it to find out.
So I
Isn't
think
it the other way around? Isn't it Oreo flavored Coca-Cola?
Maybe, I don't know.
Who
Maybe I
knows?
should think of it
Maybe
that
it's
way.
both. Yeah.
All right, so at its core, we as a group tend to think of a family game as something that is fun with multiple, and by fun we mean provide some sort of laughing or something that is memorable, something that can be done, something that's easy to learn and pick up, and something that is also able to incorporate a lot of people, because especially for a family, you don't want to sit anyone out. I think it's a really good. I think we've covered a lot of bases there with a family game. All right, we're going to change up the order now. We're going to go back to Mr. Joel. We're going to start with you. We're going to go around the way, and we're going to go to our third games of our 5 best family games.
Just double check. Yeah. So at number 3, this is a game that I actually only played for the first time a couple weeks ago. So if you watched last week's episode, you probably know what it is. It has some Yahtzee elements and some really big icons, and that is King of Tokyo.
King of Tokyo.
yeah.
Wow. Okay. Love that.
I do think it's probably a little bit older, so probably not quite the 5 to 6 year olds, because there's a bit of reading on the cards. So you're probably looking like maybe 8 to 10 up.
Mm-hmm.
But otherwise, like there's so many, as we talked about, like moments that get made throughout the game where we just, oh man, it was so fun when we did this, and I can't believe this way. And I found that there's a lot of different ways to win the game. If one kid just wants to go for points and doesn't want to get attacked, they can do that. If the other kid would like to smash everybody, they can do that as well. It's really fun. It looks visual, very tactile with the dice. And yeah, I think it's just a good time all around.
Yeah, I've played this with like 4-year-old kids as
Really?
well.
Yeah.
But these are board game kids. They're very
yeah,
into
well,
it. So,
yeah.
But yeah, that's a great game.
Yeah, I think King of Tokyo is a great pick as well. I mean, look, it is one of those games you probably want to not play with more than 6 players if you're trying to get a quick game out. But if you can, so long as everyone knows, hey, we're in here for a bit of fun, you're probably going to have a laugh more than you're going to try to win this game. And I think if you go into it, I think you come out feeling like that you'll have a great time there. I think it's also, as you're right, just the rolling of the dice and everyone going, oh, hey!
Everybody's
that.
like
It's
buying in
really-
at once. Just, oh, yeah, you're going to go for that? No, oh, he's decided to stay in. Like, yeah, it just felt like there was a lot of little memories that we sort of laughed about for
Perfect.
the coming weeks.
There's that
Right.
tension as well, because you've got like the king of the hill mechanic, right? Like you have
Yeah.
one person that's trying to occupy that space.
And you find like it's always like the first time they get hit, you're like, are you gonna stay? Come on, you know you want to.
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
you're like,
yeah.
no, all right, I'm gonna stay.
Some
Like,
good
yeah.
stories from that too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that.
It's a game that's really stood the test of time. I have to
It
say.
has. Look, it has. And if you want to check out get our in-depth conversation of King of Tokyo, check out episode 64. We talked about it last week, so that'd be good too. All right, I'm going to move on. We're going to come around. We're going to go anti-clockwise. We're going to come to me now. And this is a game...
So arbitrary.
Here's one to talk.
I don't know.
His voice was
Gonna go to me. I mean, look, I was like, we're gonna go to that guy in the street. Hey, anyway, no, we're gonna go to me.
Tower.
Oh, wow. Is that Ralph again? He's over there. How did he get over there so far?
With his
Anyway.
teeth. No.
Oh no, we're gonna go to a game that I have played many a times. It's here in my collection. We're gonna talk about Hues and Cues. Hues and Cues is what it's called. This is a family game where it is as simple as they come. It is literally a game about guessing a very, very specific color. So basically, the game has got a grid of colors. Basically, imagine like just imagine the RBG kind of like, you know, the red, blue, green pick, you know, when you pick the colors in like Photoshop or something like that, but then they've split it into squares. Okay, and that's all you need to do. And then I will give you a one-word clue, and I will say something along the lines of Kermit. And then you all now need to guess what exact color I mean by having said
I'm
Kermit.
thinking
Which
green.
shade of green
Which
specifically?
specifically? So Ralph's right behind you, right there. It's down here. If you want to, I don't know if you'd be able to go. Oh no, don't worry. It's behind. It's all under all my boxes. I could have gotten it out. But if you see on the box there, you can just see how different those hues are. By not the people home, you guys, if you want to see what I mean.
I've
But
got it. We played it.
yeah, have you?
Yeah, we played it.
Oh,
yeah.
good. All right. But then the other thing about it is what I really like about it is that then the second one happens, which is like, now you get a 2-word.
I love how it's you may give a 2-word.
Yeah,
I think that's really cool.
I
You can just be like, no, you guys are close enough. I'm not going to give you more.
I just like
points.
I remember once my cousin did that.
Everyone
And
just
he
go
read,
again.
no, I don't have to. He just went Kermit, and he did the first clue, and he went, all right, everyone go. Okay, second clue, and he went Kermit.
Really, Kermit?
Like,
No.
really, yeah.
So I was like, all right, but like it's great because all the witches' hats go down, and then you've got the the
little grid
scoring
there, yeah.
scoring square.
That's
yeah.
quite clever, isn't it? The scoring
It
square.
is,
It's
yeah.
quite satisfying to put it down.
Yeah, and like you just love when you pick them up, you're just like, ooh, and
Yeah.
if they put it, and so you're in the center of that scoring square, you're like, yes, like no,
Nailed
I
it.
absolutely got it. So
As a colorblind person, it's just funny where people accuse me as to how bad my guess is.
yeah, I will
it
say
is.
that is the one downside of this game. You
It's
don't
not an
really-
accessible game.
It's not an accessible
me,
game for
no.
people who have color blindness
That's right, I'm in
or
it for the
blindness
lols.
in general. But
If you're colorblind and you win this game, though,
This is the blind
I don't
guy.
know, I know, but you definitely don't want to. That's what I'm saying. Anyway, but Hues and Cues it's one of those games that I found that made it onto the shelves of like our local Kmart / Target, those
Yeah.
kind of stores.
I've seen it
And-
everywhere lately.
Yeah, and if it's on those shelves, you can absolutely get them everywhere. So highly recommend Hues and Cues.
If you don't see it on the shelf, just walk into the shop and give the guy at the checkout just one word clue as to what you're after.
Hues.
Yeah, and see what he.
Hugh.
comes
Ah,
back with.
yes. All right, Ralph. Let's go to you for your third game.
perfect. So for me, like I mentioned, a family game is one that brings a group together, and with this game, that happened naturally. It happened. We just finished eating, and the massive kitchen island was free. And I go to my niece, let's play this quick game, and it was called Timeline. And that is where a piece of history, a little card, goes in the center of the table, and it just said the Colosseum was built when opened. And you flip it around, it says 73 BC or AD, I think. And then you all have like 4 events in front of you, historical events. And it was like, when was the first Harry Potter book released? Was it before or after the Colosseum? So you just put it to the right of that card because it was after. And naturally, as you go through your cards, the timeline gets bigger and it gets harder to place your...
Or like they stay out
They stay
permanently,
out
and then you've got to get the
permanently.
next card.
So the tableau in the middle of the table stays out permanently.
So you're like before Harry Potter, after the Colosseum.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So like when was the first Woodstock? And you have to try and slot that card in there. Anyways, what happened was it just started with a 2-player game. It ended up with a 10-player game because everyone got roped into placing this thing, and we just played with all the cards, and we made this the longest train of tableau. We broke the rules, we broke the game, but you know what? Family game, everyone got involved in it, and I didn't even have to explain it.
And then the board game police busted through the door and went, "Get down! You broke the rules!"
Yeah, so now I bought a couple of the timeline tins. They come in little tins,
Yeah.
and you can mix all the cards
Oh, that's
together
great.
because they're just like some
More
are
cards.
inventions, some are historical events, and it doesn't matter. It just all happened in the past, right?
Yeah, I love
so
it.
timeline, really recommend it for that chill vibe. You can get competitive with it, but you know what? We just had a bit of fun with it anyway.
Yeah, love that. All right,
Nice.
Leah, let's go to your third game.
All right. Well, this one I've had in the corner of my eye line for the whole time we've been sitting here.
Yep.
And I guess
Ralph
might be a
the
little
board
bit
game.
controversial as well. Like not as much maybe as pulling a gun on your mum, but
It's not Twilight Imperium, is
it's
it?
not
It's right up there. Please tell me.
it's not Twilight Imperium. Ralph's got it. It is Camel Up.
That's not, I don't think that's controversial.
Look, I've heard some people question the gambling element, but I will defend, everyone's right to play this with their family.
Yeah.
So let me explain it a bit first. So what you're doing is you're racing camels in the desert. It's very simple. Each person is essentially betting. That's where some people get tripped up when I've explained the game. They're like, oh, do I control a camel? No, the dice controls
The camels.
the camels.
Yep.
You're basically betting for who you think is going to win. The game plays out over a number of rounds. So the race isn't over super quickly. You're sort of moving them gradually bit by bit. But each round, you're also betting on the round as well as the overall race. So there's a number of layers to the betting that happens. But the fun part of this, I think, is the theme is done so well. The randomness of the camels moving, and you've always got 2 crazy camels that go in the opposite direction and start dragging some camels with them. So sometimes you're betting on the clear winner, and then suddenly they get dragged back by the crazy
That's
camels.
always funny. Yeah.
And that creates stories going back to the making stories around
I've
the
never
table.
played with the crazy camel
Oh, really?
variant. I've never done that.
I
We
highly
might-
recommend it. Just
that sounds like it'd be great.
it's so much fun.
So the other reason, the main thing that Leo hasn't explained about the game is what actually happens is that if a camel lands on the same space as another camel,
Yes.
they stack. And the little camel wooden feet, they're all made in a way so they stack properly. So like if you land on that square, great, you're now the one on top of that camel. So if the camel below you moves, it moves the whole stack.
Yeah,
And
right.
so what we had in one game, we literally had a stack of 5 going, and then the bottom one moved, and everyone's like, yes! But what is great about it is the camel on top is considered to be in first place. So as the game gets closer and closer, you can do fun things like put on, hey, there's a -1. So if you land here, you're forced back 1 space. And so, like, everyone's just jostling for position of, like, please red, please red, please red. And then red happens to be stacked on by yellow. And yellow's like, yes!
And you get those constant moments of, like, you're about to roll the dice and everyone's like, come on, cheering for their camel. And it's just so much fun to try to calculate, like, you know what dice are left.
Yeah.
You know what camels are in front and behind. And you kind of have a rough idea of where it could go, but it's there's just enough randomness in there that it's fun.
Speaking
Like,
of
it makes
rolling
the betting
dice,
fun.
it's got a really unique mechanic in how you actually roll the dice. So what it has a very interesting prop, which is in the center of the game. It's got a mini pyramid, and that pyramid has got basically a chimney chute that is enough that you put all the dice into the pyramid, and it has a little lever that stops them from falling out. So you shake the dice in the pyramid, you put it upside down, you basically click the lever, and 1 dice pops out, and then whatever that is how far the camel moves. And it's really good because when you pass the pyramid, like, it's again that tactility of, like, hey, it's your turn to roll something. They get to hold a pyramid and shake it, and and then the dice comes out and you can
Feels
see
great.
that. Yeah, and it's really good.
There is a second edition of this game, Nee, and what's really cool about that is when you open up the board, it's a pop-up palm tree.
That's right.
Around the.
Is it?
Yeah,
I haven't
it
seen that.
unfolds.
Yeah, it
that's
unfolds with the
cool.
board.
It's
That's
very
super
cute.
cool.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool. It's not like so big that the person sitting behind it can't see the camels on the board as well. So it's quite clever that way. But yeah, I played this game a lot. I really like it.
I got
a
the
fun one,
expansion
yeah.
with it, which has, like, the photography and stuff like that. It's fun. You don't need it. The original game is just as good with that silly, you're trying to put your bets on early so that, when I put a bet on, like, who I think is going to win the game, it's like, who does he actually want to win? It's,
And that's the thing, right? Like, if you put your bet in earlier, you get more out of it
points.
if you win, but it's riskier.
Yep.
Because you don't know for sure who's going to win.
Yeah.
And also,
The other, I was just going to say the last thing that I like about this game is it scales. Like, I think it plays up to 6 people. So again, for a big group.
with
family
the
group.
expansion, you can play up to 8, and I
there
have
you go.
played full 8, and it's actually a lot of fun because it's just you need someone to keep it moving, like, to keep the game moving. But with 8 players, it can actually be very fun. We've done it that way. So.
I also had that reservation of teaching. This game you place a bet on the camel, and I have had parents like go, I don't know, I don't want my kid betting, but I'm like, but the kid's probably opening up loot boxes in a video game.
Yeah.
Like it's the same thing pretty much. But
Exactly.
yeah.
It's honestly such a light layer to it, and they're working out probabilities. Like, it's actually really
Bit of learning as
engaging,
well,
and you're
and-
learning a little bit as you
Yeah,
play.
like they
So-
see the dice that came out and they go, what's left? And they do that
Exactly.
themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, and then the other good final thing about it is that it is a Spiel des Jahres winner. It won it in 2014, so that basically means it's a very simple game, very easy to teach.
The
and very
box
easy
was
to play.
actually on top of another board
Exactly
game, and
right.
that's how
Yeah,
it won. Yeah.
exactly. It just stacked on top.
It
of
got
That's very
moved
good.
along to first
Yeah,
place.
yeah.
You know what?
Hey, it was
Sometimes
on
I
top,
shake
it's
my head.
considered
That was
first.
one that I tip my cap to you, sir.
Thank you.
But that was a really good one.
I had it was a layered joke.
Yeah,
That
it
was
was.
really- there we go. Oh god,
an onion.
there's another one in the podcast. Great. All right, we're gonna
becoming a
move.
Shrek team
all right,
now, or?
we're gonna go back along the same way that we came here. Leah, we're gonna go.
I don't know how we got here.
I don't know, mate. We're closing in on the end here. We're
lost
doing
track.
pretty well. All right, we've got 2 more games each. Let's start with you, Leah. Let's work our way back
Oh,
around the table. And then we'll
Brilliant.
go to our
Okay,
final
well, I'll
games.
go with a completely different game.
Mhm.
I think we might be dupes on this one because I did glimpse. You might have had it on your list.
Oh.
So a bit more of the party game vibe, similar to Pictomania and Decrypto. This one is called Just One.
Yep, that
See,
is
classic.
that was literally my next one coming up. So again, we're doubling
So
up.
maybe we can,
Do you just wipe them out now?
Yeah.
That's
we
right,
just
that's-
cancel each other
So
out.
this is Leo and my next game. So this will be our 4th games in this list.
Yeah.
So I'll do.
So
that
what
bit.
is just one, Leo?
Well, okay. Well, what is Just One is when it's so you can play this with a pretty big group. I think probably up to 7 or 8 people.
Yeah.
And when it's your turn to play, you reveal a card that you can't see what words are on it, but everyone else can see. And then you pick a number that sort of describes which word you're going to choose. And then your role your role is to guess the clues that other people give you for that word that you've chosen. I've probably explained this really poorly.
How many
so-
guesses do you get?
But the trick is that the people giving you clues can only use one word. They have
Just
to write
one.
it. Just one. That's the name of the game. They write it on a little like whiteboardy type thing. And then the other clever, annoying, fun mechanic is that before they show you the clue word, they have to compare amongst themselves, and any duplicates are removed from the game.
Because they're only allowed to have just one of each clue.
Exactly. So
Are we
the tricky
getting it
thing
now?
here is that the people giving you the clues can't be too obvious because they might be duplicate clues, but they can't be too obscure either because then you're not going to be able to guess.
That's
what
always
it
my
is.
problem. I always go for the obscure. And
I
It's
feel
such
like
a fun little balance.
I was gonna say, I feel like someone always has to be the one that just goes for the obvious one.
Yes.
Because if everybody goes obscure,
But how do you
then
know
nobody gets the.
who's going to be doing the obvious and
I
who's going to be
know.
doing the
Because
obscure?
you can't line up before the clues are given. Go, I'm Captain
No.
Obvious. Like,
Yeah, right.
that's kind of breaking.
You can't
the
have
game.
roles. Yes.
Yeah.
And the other thing as well is like in terms of the guess that you are only allowed just one guess, right? So that's the great thing. Like whenever I do the teach for this game, I say every question that you have about this game is probably going to be answered by the title. How many guesses can I have? Just one. How many
Yes.
words can I write? Just one. And everything like that is literally. I agree with you. Like this is one that I've played.
How many
with
Tim Tams can I have?
Just one. Yeah,
It's super easy to teach, and maybe the difference that we like to some of the other games we've talked about here is it's not a competitive. You're not trying to compete against each other.
No.
It's cooperative. You're trying to win as a team.
Yeah.
It does put a little bit of pressure on the person who's having to guess from all the clues, which can be
It can be
tricky
quite hard in
thing
that
with
spot.
like kids, especially that might be a bit more sensitive. So you got to watch out for that. But otherwise, it's such a great game, easy to teach, super fun, and creates great stories because you're sort of going, "Oh, I can't believe you used that clue. I wouldn't have thought of that," or "That's clever."
Well, like sometimes you actually get the word right from two very weird clues, and you're
Yes.
like, "How did you do that?"
Yeah.
My favorite is when everyone goes obscure. So everyone goes, well, like, I'm not going to say the super obvious thing. And then everyone goes obscure and everyone's looking at each other going, well, good luck with this one. I hope you figure it out. And it's like sometimes, but when you guess those ones correct, you feel like a god. You're like, yes, I am the best.
I feel like
at
$1 million
this
bucks.
game."
You can pretty much play with any age. Like if the kid picks a really hard word, you're like, you're not gonna know what that is.
Totally.
Pick a
You just
different
pick a different
number.
number.
Pick a
Yep.
different number.
Yeah, pick something
If
else.
anything,
right.
you can let them see the card. Like you hold the card up and then just agree, like we're gonna do number 2.
Yeah.
Like, that's what
Yeah,
we've tend
yeah.
to find.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah. So that's a great. Yep. So that was Leo and my fourth game in this list, Just One. A really great game. Again, this is one of those ones that you can find it like everywhere. Like it sells lots of copies. So there is that. Ralph, we'll go to you for your penultimate game.
Okay. Yeah. So again, I didn't rank these, so I feel the pressure to the game. But I do really like this game because I've played a lot of this game. In fact, I love it so much. It's called Love Letter.
Oh, what a great game.
Good choice.
I've got the OG Love Letter, and it's showing its wear. The cards that I've got, and because we play it, me and a cousin of mine, wrote people in, and we play it quite a lot at family barbecues and things like that. It constantly came to the table. And we played it so much. It's the type of game that I will typically have in the car with me. And if we had like a bit of a low key night or waiting for someone, we're like, let's get it. Let's just play. Let's just do it. So yeah, we've played Love Letter a lot. It sort of gets to the point now where it's like, okay, well, I know I've got the handmade. I'm going to play that straight away. First hand. Like, and we start having a bit of fun with it. Sometimes we like change the strategies around, like just because you played a lot and you're like, it's a great game.
Yeah.
What's
Yes.
the
Second that.
premise? Like I haven't seen this game before
So-
personally.
Very rarely you'll find a game that has 16 cards in it. I think it's called a micro game.
Yeah.
And this one is one of the best ones out there. But essentially, there's different rolls of cards, and everyone only gets one card.
Mm-hmm.
And when it's your turn, you'll grab a card from a central deck in the middle of the table.
Yep.
And you get a choice of which card do you play. Okay, so if I play the guard, there's 5 cards in the deck. I can try and go guess one of your guys' cards. So I can go, Joel, you have the prince. And if you do, you're eliminated. Okay? And the idea is to be the last person in the game or to finish the 16 card deck and reveal your hand and you have the highest numbered card. That is how you win. So that's 1 point. Essentially, you get to 4 points and you win. And the cards all have different abilities that interlock with each other in a very unique way. Where it's like if I played a particular card that gave you a clue as to what I'm holding, there's some cards' abilities where it says, oh, you can just look at my hand. Okay, so you know what I'm holding. So if you have a way to eliminate me, now I'm like, I need to get rid of this card because Joel's going to get rid of me.
Yeah, okay.
So it creates a very interesting dynamic where I'm like, do I get rid of that card or do I just get rid of Joel?
It creates some good stories
card,
too,
the
because
card.
sometimes you have an impossible choice where it's like either way I'm dead, or
And when you start looking at, okay, Leo's won 3 games, I can't let Leo win. I need to knock him down.
it's a
and then I'll-
balancing kind of game as well.
Yeah.
But there's also things like the princess. So the theme of the game, really, the reason why it's called Love Letter is because the theme is that you're trying to woo the princess, right? And so the princess is the highest card in these 16 cards.
And everyone's writing letters to the princess.
And so she's going to choose one of her courtesans to become her, prince or whatever, right?
Suitor.
Suitor, right? So that's the whole. But the premise of the game is like, hey, that's the premise, but the game itself is doing nothing really to do
The
that.
theme is a bit tacked on.
Yeah,
I have to
it
say.
really is,
It's
but-
fun to try to explain to
yeah,
people,
but
but
it-
it makes no sense really.
Absolutely,
when
but
you
it's
think
great.
about
So,
it.
like, for example, the princess, you're not allowed to get rid of her ever. If you ever reveal the princess, you immediately are eliminated,
You're
from,
eliminated
the
from the game.
But she's the
Yeah,
highest
okay.
value card. So if you have the princess in your hand, you're like, crap. Now I'd never want to.
And
So
that
it gets
crea-
to the end.
but
it's
that
good
creates
for
a
you,
very thing
but
because
you've
you
gotta
can
make it.
you can never play the princess, so you always have to play your other card.
Yeah.
Right.
But
Yeah.
if you're playing in a big group, there's an element of bluffing because you don't want to let
Oh,
people
yeah.
know that you have the princess, so you have to pretend.
There
I
is
got
a-
it.
there is a-
Like,
there is a card-
I
there is a
mean, I
card-
guess
well,
I'll- yeah.
there is a card that allows me to swap hands with you. So the moment I swap hands with you, I immediately know what you have.
But then
now
it's
you-
your turn.
But now you know what I have, right? So there's all this stuff that goes on where it's like, okay, it's really good.
And the thing is, it's
It's
not,
also
it's
portable.
not
It's
hard
super
to, it's
portable.
super portable.
Portable,
It's not
yeah.
hard to teach at all. You play one round. A
Yeah.
round takes a minute.
I was gonna say quick game though. Anyway, so
yeah.
a dummy round's fine.
100%. You know, don't take it too seriously. Anyway, someone gets the 4 points. That's it. We'll
It
play
comes in a
again.
little pouch about the
Um,
size of your hand, so you can literally put it into
But
like a pocket and take it with you.
But I saw this game years ago on the shelves, and I just moved on. I didn't know what it was, and wasn't interested at all. But yeah, the theme's very tacked on. But now I love the theme. I'm really into the game. There's other variants, like we played the Star Wars one, and that's
Yeah.
a slightly different game, but it's still really good. Highly recommend that. There's
Jabba's Palace,
there's
yep.
so many different variants. There's ones that are really expensive to get, like the Batman one is a limited collector's
yeah.
edition.
Yeah.
So is the Arkham Horror one, I believe.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a fantastic
Okay.
game.
All right,
Sounds good.
Leo, we're going to go to you for your final game on the list.
Oh, that came around quickly.
Yeah, I know. We are absolutely. Oh wait, Joel, have
It's
you
not
done your?
final.
I think
I've
you
still
haven't
got
done
I've
it.
still got
Sorry,
two to
yeah,
go.
guys, no, sorry.
Come
fourth
on,
game
man.
For Joel, sorry,
Nah.
and then we're going to go back to
That's it.
Leo and we'll work our way around.
So this one's a little bit different. It's probably a touch older, but it's the thing I like about this game is that it evolves with the family as they sort of grow up together. It's a fairly new-ish game. It says probably the last year, and that is Cascadia.
Oh yeah.
Cascadia.
Good choice. Very good
Yes.
choice.
Now, if you haven't played Cascadia, essentially you get these little hexagon tiles, and they will have a habitat in the background, which is like a blue water or like green grasslands, fairly obvious.
etc.
Yeah, and then on that it has like some little icons of animals that you can put in the habitat. And on your turn, all you're gonna do is grab a habitat and an animal and match them up, and you'll just build your board out. I think it takes about 20 turns, maybe like 30 minutes or so. But look, it's like the thing that I really liked about it, it actually comes with a family mode rule set in the game. It's part of the book where you don't have like the ABCD, the different power-ups and stuff. It's just about just putting animals down and just learn to play the game and just have fun, so to speak. But then as you do get older and as you do get into the game more, you can then do the A set of cards where now you want bears to be in a line and you want fish to be away from each other and things like that. So the game's going to kind of evolve with you over the years. And again, like there's no language barrier for this. It's easy to teach. And yeah, it's just something that I think would sort of grow with and get better and better as we go along through the years.
Cascadia is a great choice. It's one of the games that we refer to as a tea game. It's a game that you just boil the kettle, get yourself
Much like
a cup.
Azul in that way.
Yeah, very
Yes.
much so. It's one of those
Yeah.
perfect games of like, hey, we can have a chat whilst doing this. And the game as well, even though on your turn you're not doing anything, a lot of it can be like, hey, once I've picked my tiles, you can just go ahead and pick your tiles, and then we can all just be trying to figure out the puzzle of what we're doing at the same time. There's no real. This game does allow you to actually have quite a lot of just continue to play and how you go about it. There's a lot of these. Oh, it's a rookie mistake. Oh, it's okay. We won't. That's okay.
The other thing that I do like about it, and just to touch on, this typically happens in co-op games, but even though this game is against each other, it's all open hand.
Yeah.
So if we can see someone struggling, like, oh, I think like it'd be really good if you put the bear over there. That'd be really good for you. And it's quite friendly in that manner.
This is why people don't play games with me too well.
I wouldn't
because
do that to you. I'm gonna crush
If I say
you.
that to you, you're going to be like, I can't trust Ralph.
No, I agree. Cascadia is one of these games that's only just recently, as you said, come out within the last like 2 years, year to 2 years. But it has actually kind of taken the board gaming scene by storm in that lighter genre because it looks great. It's very colorful, very bright, but the theme of it is just, hey, we're just creating nature. There's a very big nature swing in Wingspan, Earthborn
Absolutely.
Rangers, Earth, all these kind
It's
of
a
things.
hard theme to hate, right? Like, who hates birds?
But it's very universal, right? Like
Yeah.
it's if you see board gaming as a bit of a nerdy kind of venture, this kind of breaks away from that, right?
Yeah, it is.
Ooh.
And this
I
is well,
sense it's a discussion topic.
well,
Yeah.
you're absolutely right without going too deep into it, but it does, like, this is a game that, you could put in front of your grandmother and they understand, hey, we're just building a habitat for bears and birds and
They might be
fish
turned
and-
off by orcs and elves, but bears and fish and salmon.
The expansion is city building.
Yeah.
Followed by the portal
There'll be a
opening and then
Batman
the
theme
orcs
for
walk
this as
through.
well. Yeah.
All right, fantastic. No, that's a great fourth game. So Cascadia. Now we're going to move on to our final games here for our top 5 family games each, and we'll start with you now, Leo, for your last game of your top 5.
Ooh.
Okay, my last game is maybe a little bit more obscure than my other picks. I just wanted to throw a little bit of a wild card in there. It's a game that's generated some good stories in our household. I think it's a lot of fun and it's super portable, quick to play, all the good stuff. It is by Oink Games.
I was gonna say,
It is
is
called
it the one over
Deep Sea
there?
Adventure.
There
It is the one over there. I should bring it over. But so let me just describe what it is. So it's a very little box, and what you're doing is basically each of you are deep sea divers.
Yep.
You start in a submarine together. You are managing your oxygen as a team, but you are competing against each other to dive the depths of the ocean and get the best treasures, right? And so the game is really a push your luck. During your turn, you roll a dice, you move down this little treasure kind of path that goes deeper and deeper into the ocean, and you're taking turns doing that. And the trick of it is
You got to get back.
you have to get back. So again, you're going to manage your oxygen. But the thing is, so you have to decide, when have I gone deep enough to get the really good stuff? And then as soon as you've got the good stuff, you pick it up and you declare, I'm going back up. But each person that picks up a treasure reduces the amount of oxygen that everybody's getting.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
it's a real race. Once one person's picked up a treasure,
You
everybody's
cowards.
like, oh shit, all right, I'm going to pick up my treasure. I'm going to run back.
You
and
cowards,
everybody's
where are you going? Yeah.
trying to head up. And so, yeah, it's just got that really fun push your luck element. And there's a fun learning curve as well. I've noticed when you play with kids, or most people really, they all die in
they
the
just wanna
first
keep
round.
going.
Because it's just
I'm
like,
gonna
oh,
get
but I
more
want to get more
treasure than
treasure.
you.
I want to get better
Guilty.
treasure.
I'm guilty. The very first time I played this game, I was at a board game barbecue event here in Sydney, and it was probably at 11 o'clock at night. So we were in the closing hour before we had to go, and someone just got it out, and we played a 4-player game. He's like, roll dice, move down.
Yeah.
At some point, you need to turn back and get back to the ship. And we all went, all right.
Yeah,
And
sure,
I remember
whatever.
The first time that I remember the guy, one of the first players went back to the ship. I went, no, I can keep going for one more. I'll get one more. And then I was like, nah, didn't get back. I'm like, okay, like I can see how this is.
It is a punishing game.
Oh,
and
it's-
no matter how much you warn people and you say you should really be getting back soon, like, nah, I can do it. And
So
then
you
they
still,
die.
but you still
But-
have to have the most treasure of the people
Of
that
the
get
people
back
that get
up.
back.
Yes. So
Right.
you've
You-
got to
you
make
have
it
to
back
get
to the
back.
submarine alive, and then you can claim your treasures. If you don't make
Yeah.
it back, you
just-
don't get to keep
First
your treasures.
condition is be
But
alive.
the lovely
Yeah.
thing is it plays over 3 rounds. So if you stuff up the first round, you've got 2 more rounds to redeem yourself.
Although
Yeah.
it does have that effect of that if you stuff up the first round and die,
No, you
find,
really
like,
need
the
to go
second
for it.
round, you're like, no, I really
No,
gotta
you
get
become a
it.
risk taker
Yeah,
even more.
Yeah, because you're like, I gotta get that
Yes.
treasure if I'm gonna win this game.
Yeah.
It's exactly what happened to me, and I'm like, damn it.
Absolutely.
It was great, but because the game plays super fast, each round was like 8 to 10 minutes max.
Yeah.
Like there are little things of like, as I'm moving down the treasure, you can never stack tiles on the thing. So you're like, if everyone's rolling big, we're all getting free movement, just moving down the board. It's like,
Yes.
oh, and then it's like, hey guys, we're definitely doing great. We can do this. And then
Yeah.
one person goes, nah, man, I'm out. Sorry, bye. You're like, no, you coward, come back. We were doing so well. That
Yeah.
was great.
I love how it's actually. I love games that are very thematic to real life.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because with this one with scuba diving, you can go down fairly quickly, but coming back up, you need to do that slowly because if not, you develop those air pockets
That's
in your
right.
body. So like, it really.
Yeah.
I don't know if they had that in mind when they
But
created
it's,
it.
the mechanics, are, like you say, it's so tied to the theme, right? So you
Yeah.
pick up a treasure, it's weighing you down. So each treasure that you hold, you
Your
subtract one
minus
from your
die,
dice
yeah.
roll. So you're moving more slowly. So like those little tweaks are so clever and thematically
Yeah.
aligned and really fun because they
Yeah.
sort of force you to make tough
Yeah.
decisions. If you change your mind at some point, you can even drop your treasure so that you can move faster to get back to the submarine in time.
Alright.
It's like these little decisions that you can make.
Yeah, I wonder. I'm genuinely curious if they actually thought of that scuba diving mechanic.
Yeah,
but
I'd
yeah,
love to know as well.
yeah, that would be pretty cool.
Right. All right, Joel, we're going to go to you for your number one
Ooh.
game. You've Mr. Who's ranked it. We're going to go to you for your number one family
So
game.
I have ranked it, and the main reason that I've ranked this at number 1 is I've actually played it at a lot of different ages, and it has worked at every age. I've played it with 6, 7, 8, 10, 13, 14, all the way up to...
And 12.
He didn't say
missed
no.
12 as well.
Yeah, I don't know any 12s, unfortunately. No. All the way up to with my dad, who's like in the 40s. So
That's
sorry,
every
Dad.
age. He's got it.
But
Wait,
50s onwards, I'm really not
Yep,
sure.
he's got it,
Alright, I'm
definitely
sorry.
got it.
And I actually do modify it a little bit for the really, really young ones. But it's a game that has a lot of really great moments. There's a lot of interaction and buy-in, and it's heavily centered around just probability and rolling dice. And that is Space Base.
Oh, I love Space Base.
And it is a simple one. It's one that a lot of people would have heard before, but there's just, I don't know, there's something about that particular game that just gets a lot of buy-in from everyone all the time. Like I can see Ralph is building up to 8s, and every single time someone rolls an 8s, Ralph is like, yes, 8s again, woo! And then everybody else is like, man, these 8s keep coming, man. Other times you could bank on the 12s and they'll never come, or you could bank on the 12s and they come 3 times in a row. As again, it just has a lot of really great moments that we remember.
Yes, definitely.
Iconography is really, really simple. As I was saying, when we play younger, like 5, 6-year-old, we take out all the cards with writing and the white dice on them.
Yep.
So all they have to know is the gold symbol, the income symbol, and the point symbol, and they're the only cards that come up.
We just even leave them in, and because it's a market, you can choose not to buy them. So I find that with the kids, they'll tend to like go for the simpler cards.
Just the ones they know.
So yeah, but I think that's a great idea. You can definitely modify
The only
it.
thing that my younger kids had struggled to understand the idea of like, hey, you're not the active player, so you just need to understand. It's like, hey, you just care about red now. Once they understood that, it's like, oh, okay, I only care about what's happened on the red symbols when you're rolling. But when it's me, it's blue. And it's like, oh, okay, and that makes sense. Well, we talked about it before, Leo, but like, it like helps kids understand probability of like,
Yes.
hey, you know, 1 through 6 is probably going to come up a lot more often, but they're not very powerful. But
And the rulebook has a great probability chart as
Yeah.
well, which
Oh,
I even
nice.
find enlightening because of the complexity of the fact that you can either claim the total of the 2 dice or each dice individually.
yeah.
It means it's not like a simple bell curve probability. There's like a
No.
little bit more
Yeah.
to it, but it's super interesting.
Yeah, it's really good.
I do find that like the luck of the dice sort of evens the playing field a little bit too. Like even if you do know all the probability, 12s might just come up. Like there's nothing you can do about it. And again, being another, it's open-handed, even though we're against each other. If this younger people are trying to struggle with what they can do next, or they didn't realize that an 8's been rolled on someone else's turn and they haven't caught on to that mechanic yet, you can point it out and be like, hey, I rolled an 8. Don't forget, like you get points when we roll an 8.
Yeah. There's definitely like no downtime, so it's really fun for everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great choice.
Every time the USS Armstrong comes out, everyone's like immediately
You
saying
win.
yes,
The
yes,
you win card.
The you win card. Everyone's like, "What's that?" Well, if you roll the 11 3 times in a
Yeah,
row,
yeah,
you, like,
Has
3
anybody
times.
actually
Yes,
achieved
my-
the you
my-
win?
Multiple
yes,
times.
yes, my-
So do you have to do a sector swap to make
You
it?
can do that if you wish. That is a
The strategy that I like is to basically build for it in case it comes up. You get all those cards
Get
that
the arrow card.
yeah, you get
Oh,
the
of
arrow
course,
cards, and then like
yeah.
if I roll an 8, arrow, bang, 12.
That's clever too. Yep.
Yeah, I have seen it twice, and every time that we play with my friends on Tabletop Simulator, it's always been USS Armstrong. It's like, who's doing it? And someone's like, yes,
Someone's got to go for
someone's
it.
got to go for it.
It's become my like, oh, I've got 10 minutes free. I'm just gonna play that on Board Game Arena.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I think because of that, I've played it a lot and become really competitive with it.
Yeah.
Oh.
And I played it in real life with my sister. It's her first game, and she beat me, but I was just sort of like blindly picking stuff because I was like, it's not really fair if I go
Yeah.
up. But,
It just like I played it with a 6-year-old who is not a board game kid, had never played really like
wow, that's a
This
huge
was-
game to throw at them.
we played Trouble and Sorry, like very like
Oh,
standard family
I'm
games.
sorry about that, man.
Yeah, look,
Jeez.
like it was like I'm not sure how this is gonna
You're
go.
asking for trouble.
Exactly. Where it was very loud dice clicking for a long time.
That's
and then
called something. I don't know what it's called. That popping thing. It's called. Anyways,
It's got a name?
There's a
I
name
thought-
for
I
it.
thought it was
out.
called it the popper.
Yeah.
and then we just sort of
That's your
went
juice box.
like this is a short game. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. We can play something else. We can go play Trouble again. As much as I can put up with it.
Yeah.
And got it straight away. Had no problems. Understood. Like, yeah, it was really good.
So a bit spicy, but
go.
I think that Space Base is a better version of Machikoro.
I've never played that much.
So
I've
Machikoro,
played them both, and I agree.
yeah. So Machikoro has a very similar mechanic, but I think it's overly simplistic and more luck based. I
Very
would
much.
say, whereas Space Base is more nuanced, and you can definitely employ more of a strategy.
Like it feels like your decisions sort of make an impact a bit more.
Yeah,
In Space
and
Base,
Machikoro is much more aggressive. So in Machikoro, you have a lot more aggressive cards and rolls that like hurt other people because
Yep.
you're sort of There's a currency, like a money element to the game. So anyway, not to denigrate Machikoro that much, because we do, like, I think my
It's got a
my
legacy
sister's
version now, so
got a copy of it, and it comes to the table quite a bit.
Legacy's a thing.
So it's not that I dislike Machikoro, but I do think Space Base is a better version of
that's
the
all.
mechanics.
Too much Yukoro.
By the way, Ralph, it's called the Pop-O-Matic.
The Pop-O-Matic.
In trouble, it's called the Pop-O-Matic.
Who thinks of this?
I don't know.
It needs to make
Hundreds
a
and
comeback in board
thousands.
games,
That's
what it
right?
does.
According to the roll
Yeah.
of the dice, using
the same.
a device called a
Space
Pop-O-Matic.
Base. Space Base with a
Space
Pop-O-Matic.
needs a pop. Like it
Actually,
could be like
Pop-O-Matic
a
could.
like a mission control, like
Yeah.
launch button.
Yeah,
like a
yeah. The red
launching-
button, the launch.
Yeah,
Yep.
we should. Can
No.
you 3D print a Pop-O-Matic?
I probably could.
Please.
Honestly,
I need
it
a
wouldn't-
I don't know if I
rocket-shaped
could do
one.
It wouldn't even
translucent.
need
I
to
need
be
a
a
rocket
pop.
one.
If you just got like a snow globe looking thing, but it was like the top of a UFO, like a spaceship
Oh,
or
that'd be
something,
cool, yeah.
you shake the UFO
Why
and
aren't
the
there
dance.
snow globe dice things?
Oh,
Right?
that's good.
Oh, that's
Wait.
Just
cool.
invent
Scratch
that.
it out of the
Patent-
podcast.
patent- yeah, yeah, yeah.
Scratch. No.
All right, Ralph.
Can you
let's go-
edit that out of the podcast so we can
All right,
claim
Ralph,
it?
let's go from your good idea to your final game.
That's
the
a
top
terrible
five.
idea.
I
Yeah,
thought it was
so
okay.
I did mention for me a family game is one that has presence, and this game for me, 2 or 3 of us can sit at the table or stand at the table and play this game. And then naturally you hear conversation dying from the main table and everyone's looking at our table. That game is a Jenga-like. It's called Rhino Hero.
Yeah,
Rhino
good
Uh,
choice.
and in this game, you're essentially stacking cards. So you know those old school card towers you do with when
With
you
the
just a
little-
standard 52 deck
the
and
ones
try
that
and
never
build a
stay up?
pyramid.
Yeah.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
one. So it's like that, but these ones are more designed to stay upright. And you're building a little house. But the house as you're building it is actually, I think, on fire. But the little rhino is a hero, and he's flying up the building and he's saving people. So you're building this building, and you can see people struggling in it, and you have to basically move the little rhino figurine up, and he gets higher and higher and higher as the little building of cards is going up. And genuinely, you get pretty good at stacking these as a group. It is a competitive game. The game itself isn't great. It's kind of like Uno in a way, where you get like your skip, and your idea is to get rid of all your cards to win the game first.
Like it's not balanced overly well, but it's simple.
That doesn't matter. It's really, the point is you're stacking these cards and just seeing how high you can get this tower.
Yeah.
And if you play it like that, I think this game has a presence that just people are drawn to naturally, and that's what makes it a great
It
family
always
game.
looks so weird whenever you see the tower start going up. You always just turn your head and go, "Oh God!" Like, how does that thing stay up? Because the cards are bent specifically in a way. And then you have cards that are bent, and you can actually put like a flat card, so the level of the house
roof,
that goes
the roof
on.
of the
But then
building,
eventually, what
yeah.
happens is you're stacking them in a way because you can see that it's leaning this way. So I'm going to need to make it so it's weighted that way now, so it helps center the gravity back that way. And yeah, it's great. It's one of those fun games that plays in like 6-7 minutes. Ralph's right. Like, there are things that allow you to skip people's turns and stuff like that, which is not great in terms of like from a family perspective, but it does allow brothers and sisters to have the moment of moving on.
Yeah.
But if you can keep the game moving and having those moments, it's like, okay, cool. We're like,
And why is it called Rhino Hero?
because he's a little superhero rhino.
Oh, that's the thing that moves up.
Yeah,
and he's
he's
saving
a-
people.
he's a rhino
So
hero.
the rhino is literally the size of a large
He's
dice in a
amiibo.
way.
Right.
He's a
It's
little
basically
people.
And what does
He's
he
little
do?
people.
Like, what's the point
So
of Rhino?
there's certain route, so you basically, the way it works is you place your one or two walls of the building, and you have to place a roof on top, and that roof stipulates how the next player has to place their walls. But some of the roofs actually have a little picture of the rhino on it, and means you have to take the rhino from a lower level and move it to the top level of the building.
It's like as if he's flown through the window, superhero style, to come and save the
And
people.
the thing
Right.
is, someone will eventually play a card, and you have to move him again and again
Yeah.
and again and again.
And it's like touchy
And
to move.
obviously, you have to be
Yeah.
very careful when you take it off this little fragile building of cards,
Yeah.
and then not breathe and place him higher on the fragile building of
not
cards
breathe.
that's
He's got
even
the-
less stable than the land he was on
Yeah,
before.
okay.
And
Is there
just,
much weight in the Rhino either?
not
or
really.
is-
It's the weight of a small dice.
Yeah, okay.
But the thing is, like, when you're doing that, everyone is watching you.
Yeah. Jenga
It's a
style.
bit Jenga, yeah.
It's very Jenga, but yeah, for me, it's the Jenga replacement. Jenga's cool and all; it still has its place. It's quite good. It still does the same thing as Rhino Hero, but like, I think seeing a deck of cards balancing and it's just getting higher and higher, that's what makes it kind of that unique element.
Yeah, okay.
I always
Yeah.
enjoy
Very cool.
games like that, Rhino Hero, and now Nekojima, which we talked about last week in last week's episode. For me, that is like, I like things where you have to build them up rather than starting from something and then kind of changing the thing like in Jenga. So, I really enjoy that kind of style.
Sweet.
All right, we're going to move on to my final game now, and the final game for our special, which is I'm going to just get straight into it. It's a game called Trapwords. And Trapwords is a very similar sort of style game to Decrypto. It is a team-based word guessing game. But in this one, again, much like in the style of Decrypto, two things happen. It's a race between two different teams of dungeon, epic adventurers. And they're racing down this tunnel, essentially. And each tunnel is one square. It's first to 5. And the way that this game works is that one of us is going to be the guesser, like in all team-based word guessing games, except what's going to happen is the other team has these cool, it is going to write down a number of words, trap words, that they think the other team, the guesser, the clue giver, will use to get his teammates or her teammates to use the word. So let's say, for example, the word is air, for example, and I'm the clue giver. Ralph and Leah are on the other team, and they go, what words would Anthony use to get Joel to guess air? Oxygen, right? So you write down a whole bunch of trap words, right? I love the game name. And then you just sit there, and depending on what room we're in, it can change, like, hey, this room's 3, this room's 9, so you get to write 9 words, right?
Wow.
So, like, for example, I could, like, but then it's up to me, very similar, a la, like, Decrypto and stuff, trying to be obscure, but not too obscure. Like, for example, I may go, right, well, oxygen. And I'm going, okay, well, what words do I think they are not going to use? I could go, molecule squared, float, right? And then you're,
I would not have got that.
But you're sitting there going, what the hell do you mean, right? Because I'm
trying to work out, like, what are you trying not to say?
But the moment if I go, oxygen, and then you get to go, oxygen.
Yeah,
like,
that was a
there's
trap
the
word.
right? And then that means our team doesn't get to go forward. And then you get a turn, and we do the same thing.
Oh, wow.
Now,
Reminds me of like
Taboo.
Yeah,
I was just gonna say,
yeah.
it's
A bit more
always like
interactive,
taboo.
I think.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but like the other team gets to pick the words.
Yeah,
instead.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And what's great about it, so then there's the theme is that, hey, you're going through a dungeon, right? But what happens is then there are mini bosses along the way. So, for example, hey, we've walked into the room with Medusa. So that means you're not allowed to make eye contact with your teammates at all. You have to look over
clever.
here and
Okay.
just look over here
That's
and
cool.
just say the words. And then the final boss could be the dragon. And the dragon means he's asleep. So you can only use 5 words in total to get them to guess your word because you don't want to wake the dragon to get his thing. And so what ends up happening is that if neither team guesses the word, the bosses come towards you, like the room. So it's like the game will only ever go over 5 rounds. Now, what I love about this game is that it also has props. So they have these little spell books, and like similar thing to like Decrypto where you get to put a little card in that reveals the word. In Trapwords, they have these little cardboard props that when you put the card inside of the book and then close it, there's a little gap and it only shows you one word. And that word is the word that you have to guess. So like you get to hold this like little cool little cardboard, what looks like a tome, a magic book. But it's like, okay, that's my word. I'm going to hold it here. And it's like, all right, the opposite team, go. All right, you start typing all your trap words and you just go, right? And Trapwords is one of those games that not a lot of people have played. Every time I have played it with people though, they just go, unlike Decrypto where you get to guess, try and intercept their code and feel smart for doing it, Trapwords allows you to go, how is he going to get them to guess the word? And do I know Leo enough to go, I think he'd use this word. I think he'd try to go this way. And when you get them, you're like, you get that moment of like, gotcha. Right?
That's pretty cool.
And that's why I really love that.
Awesome.
Nice.
Fantastic. I do want to do very quick honorable mentions. 3, I've got 3 of them. I want to just shout out Hand to Hand Wombat. We did talk about that.
Great, yeah.
We talked about that one. I want to shout out Quirkle. Quirkle is
I
basically
almost wrote that on my list.
Scrabble, but with icons. If you haven't seen it, it's great because you can just play it's just tiles. And also Ticket to Ride, I actually do think is a great family game to play.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
I think it's a great family game. Those were my honorable mentions. But
I actually almost wrote Exploding Kittens, and I was a bit like, just like because of the pictures and stuff on it that I couldn't. But like the way that the game plays is so friendly for kids.
that's true.
There's colored cards, there's white cards, pink cards do this, black cards do this. Like,
I agree. I enjoy that. Any honorable mentions from that side of the table?
I had a couple of like I kind of left out a lot of the like the pure lying games.
Yeah.
So there was like One Night Werewolf, I had Cockroach Poker as well. I
That's
find them
not a
super
hat.
fun.
That's not a hat as well. Even though I love that, it just
I don't know. For some reason, just didn't make it for me into my top 5. They can be fun to bring to the table. I just feel like they're a bit of a sugar hit, but we don't get much depth of like stories or enjoy as much as the other games. So
it's fun for the first 5 minutes. Sort of
yeah,
thing.
a little bit like that.
That's not a hat for me. I left off just for that reason. I think it's like it's great, but I wouldn't classify it as a family game. It's a party game or so.
Well, it depends on your family. Your family
Yeah, that's
might
true.
love that little sense of bluffing. Like, so in my family, we love Cockroach Poker. So I'm going to give that an honorable shout out.
Love that.
Ooh.
Well, I did give it. It was an honorable mention in a back.
No, you didn't. This is mine. It's original.
Got the tape, man.
To be honest, we've mentioned a lot of games tonight, and a lot of them we've played in my family group. So I highly recommend. Sushi Go, I'd say.
Oh yeah.
Sushi
Actually,
Go, we've gotten some good legs out of.
Yes.
And I got the party one, so the variety is endless, pretty much.
Sushi Go Party, you can play up to 8 players or whatever, so that's really good. They can do that too. All right, so before we get out of here, though, we would be remiss if we did not mention our board game day that's coming up at the beginning of 2025. sydneysfamilygameday.com. That is going to be, as we've been pimping it for the past couple of podcasts now.
And pretty much all these games are going to be there, right?
Yeah, they actually are pretty much all of them.
I've got to buy Cash and Guns again, but everything.
It'd be hard to say that's in our top 5 and then not bring it.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
So if any of these games sound interesting, they will be at our board game, which is on the 11th of January in 2025 from 10 a.m. until 11 p.m. at the Campbelltown Catholic Club here in Sydney. Go to www.sydneysfamilygameday.com. There you can get your tickets. We have single tickets, double tickets, family tickets, which is 4, and we also have evening only tickets. If you'd like to come and only just, if you can't do the whole day, that's also fine.
It's awesome. Even if you've never been into board games before, it's $60 for the entire family. You can stay for 5 hours, you can stay for 10, you can stay for 13. It's up to you. We'll be there. We'll be teaching you how to play the games. We'll be walking you through it. It's perfect for beginners and people getting into the hobby. So
It's a massive library of games.
Including, look, we'll give a shout out to he is back and he was there. You were part of our first game, but you are returning with the game shelf, Leo.
Yes.
So if you'd like to give a shout out to them as well, because you will be as part of that day as well.
Yeah, that's right. We'll have a pop-up store. So, a lot of the games that you'll play from the library, you can also buy and take home with you on the day. So they'll be discounted. So, it'll be a great opportunity to find some new games to love and to take home with you.
And if they can't wait, where can they go to check
They
out
can
those?
go to thegameshelf.com.au because we have an online store.
Perfect.
nice.
Pretty cool.
Perfect. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us on this week's episode. The top 5 family games from each of the hosts here around the table. Until next week, we are now getting into our home run into the end of 2024. Look out for our top 10 episode as well as our top 10 gateway games for 2024 coming around the corner. Until next time, though, we'll see you. My name was Neeber. That was Joel, Ralph, and Leo around the table. We'll see you next time.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.